Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I let you a few minutes, some moments before the discussion following this film. And I want to welcome our two hosts, our two participants. You can come and take place before we have the connection with Shoragat. She should be online with us. Sevinch Samadzate, come here, sit down. Vikan Chiterian, thank you very much for being here.
Je vous propose de...
I suggest that we begin by presenting yourself. Perhaps the director first, or you will see her online. Here she is. Welcome.
Shoragat, bienvenue.
Welcome, Shoragat. Thank you for being with us. You hear us? Do you hear us? You hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you hear
Hello.
me? Okay.
Yes, I
Alors,
do.
je vais en profiter pour vous présenter.
I wanted to present you as all of our guests before discussing. Shoragat Vartayan, you were born in Yerevan in Armenia. She began as a musician, as her brother Solomon, before directing this film we just saw, this documentary we just saw. It's her first film. It already won prizes, a lot of prizes. It was shot, as you have seen, during 2 years. So you see the seasons go by during the film. A few days, 12 days after the death of disappearance of the brother, and you have also understand that it was filmed by her telephone. We also invited Sevinch Samadze. She is doing a PhD at the Ghent University in Belgium. She's a feminist activist in the field of international relations, and with a focus on the post-Sovietical geopolitics and South Caucasus. She has been working on the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh, and she is focusing on peace building in this region. Welcome here with us. And Vikan Chiterian, I'm very happy to see you. You are a journalist, an academic here in Geneva, an expert on armed conflicts. His works focus on violence, war, and conflict resolution. Vikan is a specialist, an expert in the post-Soviet region also, and in Middle East. And he's also a great expert on the ground of the Caucasus region. He published a lot on the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh. Thank you very much to the three of you to be here tonight with us. To speak after this film. As you saw, it's a very intense film. It's very rich. We won't have time to discuss all the facets of this footages, but I think we can exchange with Shoragat and between ourselves. Shoragat, we will begin with you, and then the other will have the floor, and afterwards we will have questions from the audience. So, to begin with, Shoragat, as I said, you began to film, to shoot very quickly after your brother was missing, And we understood the feeling that it was a need, it was an urgency to film. I think I'm not the only one I was not the only one to ask myself, what was your goal at the beginning when you chose to film? Did you want to document, to nourish a home archive? Or did you have this idea of a potential for a future film that would be screened not only in the family field, but and not only in Armenia?
Thank you for the question, and I want to at first thank to FIFDH Geneva for having my film and me for the discussion, and I want to thank you, Sevan, Sevinch, and Viken, that this discussion about Artsakh will happen. It is very important for me. And answering to your question, it happened that at the moment when I started filming, I was kind of stuck. I couldn't anymore express myself through words or through music. So film appeared. And in that moment, I also started taking journalism courses because I was in kind of existential crisis and I decided to try something new. And when my brother went missing, I couldn't concentrate anymore on my classes. So my mobile journalism teacher suggested me to take a phone from the school and just put it in the room and every day to tell to the phone how and where I'm trying to find my brother. Nobody was waiting that it will become a film because, first of all, in the school we weren't studying filmmaking, and because everybody were waiting that my brother will come back. But on the third day, when I understood what I will film, whom I will film, and every day I was understanding more what I should film. At some moment, maybe after 5 days, I had these terrible feelings that maybe my brother will not come back to home. And from that point, I started taking very seriously this filming process, and it ended up to become a film.
C'est vraiment d'autant plus impressionnant que vous...
Yet it's very impressive because you haven't been trained as a director, so we see your very innocent way of filming. You're not using a methodology or a training as a filmmaker. And in this context, what was very striking, it's the role and the importance of the telephone itself. The telephone as that is everywhere. You always wear your telephone. You are always holding it, even in your bed. And it's an object that has several functions. Of course, first it's the only link of way of communicating, of hoping to find your brother. You are waiting for, and we are waiting for him to come back. We are waiting for news. And of course, this telephone, it's your camera. So it's the way you look around you and also the way you look at yourself, because we see you come in or out of the camera frame, and sometimes you're in front of the camera and you are looking at this camera. That's your camera. And this object, the phone, becomes to turn into a protagonist. Perhaps the public will react to that. It's like a protagonist that takes more and more room. We are talking to this phone, this camera phone. You are commenting. We are not ignoring its presence. It's here. Your father talks about it, tells you how to place the phone. You ask your mother to go away because there's the telephone. And Finally, I'm quite moved when I'm telling you that, because the other function that I felt of the phone, and I would like to hear about this, is that this object, the phone, it's the way we look at things. It's a look that is a way to look that is with mixed feelings, because I don't know what you felt from your point of view, but I felt as I was looking in intimate scenes in your family life very deeply, and we are not supposed to see what we see through your phone usually. And that's very striking, to go into your intimacy, the intimacy of this torture that is killing you, like your father says, this awaiting that is like a torture that kills you. And we can ask ourselves, what was the reaction of your parents that are being filmed? Because you film everything. Very strong, terrible moments of coming to ends with the death of your brother, and it would be interesting for us to understand the relationship that your parents had with this phone and with you, and perhaps it's changed during time. How did they react to this filming? Had they problem with that? Or this object, this phone, was like a member of the family with time?
So you see the phone as a protagonist, because I guess one of the reasons of that is my unprofessionalism as a filmmaker, and the way how naively I'm filmmaking, and it turned to be the best way of telling this story. And also, yes, of course, if I had a camera, it would have been more harder to capture these very intimate moments. You see, for example, in that scene when I'm asking my mother, do not come because there is a camera, it's because she didn't give me for a very long time to film her. And I knew if she suddenly sees that there is a camera, she will make me to delete the footage. She didn't let me to film very long, and then she started letting me. And my father, at some point, he was getting angry on me when it became more and more hard, when some time passed and good news weren't coming. And when he was getting angry, I was just stopping the film to film. And I was waiting when he will be okay with it, and I was continuing. At first, they were noticing, of course, a bit the camera. Father was sometimes jokingly saying that, are you a journalist? Why you are walking after us with the camera? But then when it became very tough emotionally, they started to not notice the camera, except at moments my father was getting angry.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. And did they see the film? Did they agree to see the film when it was edited and shown to the public, to the audience? Your parents, did they see the film?
So my mother have seen rough cut, and also she asked me for the final film, and I didn't want to give her, but I gave. Of course, my father have seen only the rough cut. He didn't want to see the final film. He didn't ask for it. So.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Et vous-même?
And yourself, the first time you saw your archives, this testimony, this footage, non-professional footage, as you say, which is all the richness of this footage. What did you feel when you saw these objects, the film that was already ready and ready to be seen by an audience and not family, by a broader audience.
Did I understand right that you are asking how it was for me to give this footage as a film?
Non, de découvrir vous-même
To discover yourself, your work, when it was finished, when it was already edited, the film you would show to a broader audience in festivals, etc.
I think the editing process was so hard because I needed to watch over and over again 100 hours of material, and it was really tough because I needed to see everything through what we have done, and it took some time for me to see this, that it is becoming a film. And it was like sometimes I was feeling that there is two people inside of me as a part of this family and me as a director, and sometimes inner fights were going on, but I was all the time trying that director win. And when film was ready already and I needed to give it to the audience, I was ready. But I understood, I felt this stone going down from my heart after second screening. I felt that this film is not mine anymore, it is people's film.
Merci beaucoup. Et alors, c'est intéressant.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. I would like to go from this idea.
On voit bien qu'au travers de la micro-histoire,
We see through this micro-history, this family history,
ces images
those footage, those images, they will talk about the big history, not showing history, because warfare, politics, it's not shown, but we feel it. We feel it through seeing the hands of your father, for example. We see a lot the hands of your father. And I was thinking, Viken, I thought about what you said, because we had a discussion after seeing the film for the first time, and I wrote that you are struck by this very strong choice in this film to show family life and not to show war, and to speak about war, showing a family so in an indirect way, even if the footage is very strong. This way of speaking about war, I would like to hear on this context. Perhaps you can explain the context, the political context of these images, and what is happening in the words of Nikol Pashinyan, the Armenian Prime Minister. This text, this official text that Surrogate is reading in the middle of the night in her parents' bed. And it's like a turnover. It's such a moment, this declaration of Pashinyan, not only in the film, but also in history, in the history of conflict in Karabakh. What would you like to tell us to introduce the political context in this film? Yes, it's very interesting to see how symbols are going on and on in this film. We begin with the father from Surrogate. He's speaking about the nation, sacrifice. So it's this rhetoric, this symbolism. And at the beginning of the film, we have footage from images from the television, national television, I think, of the Second World War with the Bagranyan, the General Bagranyan. So it's the Soviet symbols. With Pashinyan, it's the speech of the nation, about the nation, and with time, we shift towards other symbolisms, more religious, and it's very interesting to see this difference, the different ideologies that bring us towards not knowing, the destabilization of the standards of post-Sovietical Armenia at the beginning of the war and after the defeat. Because today the Armenian society is very lost, and it's very easy to see it in the film. And I thought about this moment of this image of the house, the home of the family. We don't know really, it's being built. It gives us a feeling of a project, of an unfinished architecture. It's in progress, or it's suspended, or it's has stopped. So we get this feeling of an unfinished moment. Perhaps you have a political reading of this symbol of the house that is not quite finished. Yes, exactly. When I visited the post-Sovietical space a few weeks after the collapse of the Soviet Union, first Moscow and then Yerevan, I had this feeling that the Soviet Union was a project that was unfinished. The architecture, all these projects in the suburbs of Yerevan that weren't finished. For me, it was quite a symbol of this socialist project of the Sovietical Union that never got to an end, was never finished. And in the film, when I saw the house of Shoragat and her family, it was also the history of Armenia after independence. It's a project that hasn't been finished. We're still working on it. But the finality is not very clear. It's not defined. It's a bit chaotic, in anarchy. And we can say today that the ideas on which the independence movements were based are a bit questioned now, like inside the house. It's a very strong symbol. Yes, on surrogates, do you want to react to this comment? Also, the way you film this house, your house?
When I was filming, I didn't think about that, but I like this idea very much. It's really can be a symbol of what Vikan said.
Et alors, ça me fait penser.
It makes me think about something else when we speak about space. Sevinch, you kind of thought that it was a bit blurred, not very clear, the border between the military, the soldiers, and the civilians. You had this impression when you were seeing this movie. Can you tell us why? And then we'll come back to this notion of border in another way, but this notion first. The first reaction you had when you saw this unclear border.
So I think in the movie, this distinction between civilian life and military life slowly evaporates, although this is what happens in most of the wars. And it's not clear-cut, but still it's very visible how, for instance, Shokat's mother starts sewing pillows for their soldiers as a help, which women usually with their labor during the wartime do. And on the other hand, the soldiers who once were just civilians, but because they are male, they are conscripted or they are taken to the war. And you saw in the movie this moment when the truck, the car that takes the soldiers doesn't want to move, and they comment on that it's not like the truck doesn't want to move. And I think this is a very important moment to realize how the wars function, even if it is to some extent a voluntary wish to join the military or to join the war, but most of the time it's pre-structured, pre-defined, and and it goes beyond the role of being civilian or soldier.
Et je pense qu'on peut reprendre cette image de la frontière par rapport à un travail que vous avez.
Yes, and we can go back to this image of border. Relating to a work you've been doing yourself in relationships with images. I think it's very interesting for the public to know that you have made a film yourself, but in another perspective, if I can say, it's the other side of the border. And I think that in your way of understanding, you told me as we were discussing this feeling of danger, and that this other side of the border, from behind your camera, you had this feeling, very strong feeling of danger. And you were thinking that perhaps Saragat also had this feeling, perhaps in another context. So can you answer on that? And then we will ask the question to Saragat.
Yeah, so just a bit of context for the audience. I come from Azerbaijan. It's a country that was in war with Armenia in 2020, and it's a country that attacked Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh last year and forced all of its population to flee. So I come from a position which I think is important here to mention, but it's also all last 4 years. I can't believe that already 4 years have passed. I mean, it's going to be 4 years this year. But 2020 war changed me personally as a body, and that was also first reaction of me to the film was how the bodies change throughout the wartime, how bodies change in liminality, in feeling of being in between and waiting. And what I was doing back in 2020 was basically I went to the front line from the Azerbaijani side, from this side, with some of my social worker friends and activist feminist friends to help some of the women to get out and to receive some humanitarian aid. Also, some of my friends from Armenia did the same. They went to Nagorno-Karabakh and they provided some humanitarian aid there. So my position was not, again, I'm not a filmmaker, I took my phone, the same similar scenario, and the thing is, from Azerbaijani side, it was very, very much controlled to go to the front line, unless you were accredited journalist or something, by the government, obviously, and so they were keeping it all under control, but because I knew the community there, so they let me in, and I managed to take some footage for the documentary purposes, to document some processes, but it was very, very hard to document because even if you are with a phone, I wasn't even with a camera, I was just with a phone, intentionally so that I'm invisible. And I am invisible, technically, in that movie. I'm not even visible. You can only, some of my friends say that you are only visible in that film because you are breathing through the camera. That's the only way I am there. But and I intentionally chose it, in fact, to be invisible because I was, I think when you go through a certain level of feeling powerless and hopeless, you step back to be visible. But yeah, so the peril behind the camera, the fear was that it was very much controlled from the Azerbaijani side, so I could be kicked out at any point, and I wanted to help the women, so I was feeling in between whether I should document or not.
Et vous, Saragat,
And you, Saragat, did you have this feeling of danger when you were shooting, filming for one reason or another? Did you feel danger that there was some danger in filming in any way?
Thank you for this question. I can say that I completely changed in the process of filming. Before the war, I was kind of romantic girl. Like sometimes we are even talking with my girlfriends, like about what we were talking before the war, like about boys. And now, like life completely changed. I had very, very big feeling of responsibility on myself I felt like there is a big stone on my back because I needed to shoot this film. Doesn't matter what will happen, because I understood very fast that it is very important, not only to keep my brother's memory and our boys' memory, but also for everybody who is going or has gone through war. And I was, of course, feeling very big danger because I was all the time in this doubt if my brother will come back or no, if war will finish or no. Even though in the process of the war, we was thinking that Armenia is winning because there was a propaganda. But yes, I think when war is happening, you can't do not feel the danger. But in the meantime, I felt like I felt very powerful. And I think a lot of women felt very powerful during the war.
Alors, je vais rebondir sur cette phrase parce que ça,
To go on this comment, it makes me think that we don't see a lot of women in your film. Even your mother, we hear her more than we see her. She's very often out of camera. We hear her talk, live, move, but we don't see her as much as your father. That seems to be a more central figure. At least in the first part of the film. And also the images that are shot outside, we see men mostly. And I thought also about you, Sevinch, as a researcher and a feminist activist. How do you work with the role and the place of women in your work when you think you write on this conflict of Nagorno-Karabakh, and of course you can react at any time on any subject I'm tackling before we give floor to the audience.
Yeah, so the feminist peace concept for specifically the context of Nagorno-Karabakh emerged during the wartime, naturally, because some of my activist friends, we decided that there is basically no resistance to what's going on, especially from Azerbaijani side, and that's how it emerged. But theoretically, there was a base already. There were a lot of discussions because I was coming from the background of peace and conflict studies. I was involved in the peace building events for many years. So we clearly failed with our peace building, and that came into scene when the war started. So we were thinking of some alternatives, and I think the feminist intervention is that an alternative for us. It personally also helped us to go through the post-war situation, but also it helped us to politicize peace and imagine it beyond the already existing discourse that is predominant, and it still is predominant because still we hear the conversation related with the negotiations, for instance, between Azerbaijan and Armenia these days, and talking about this peace in their discourse, whatever it means. But yeah, for us and for me, now it's going beyond just, for instance, including women in the negotiation table. That's not what we mean when we talk about feminist peace. It's something beyond that. It's something understanding and analyzing the gendered context of the war, how women are affected and how men are affected, or how queer population are affected by the war. And through that dimension, I think we have a better chance of building a transversal or more interconnected movements that will go beyond the borders.
Merci beaucoup. Viken ou Shorakat,
Viken or Sharagat, do you want to react to that?
Lecture-là.
To this way of seeing the situation, understanding the images of the conflict. Well, maybe one last idea that was brought up. We just saw images that present people's intimacy in the context of a war between two post-Soviet states. But there's a second aspect to this. What do we do with those states once they're independent, once they've drawn their borders, defined their borders? Because the main challenge now is not just where the borders are, but what is being done within borders. The reason why I'm saying this is that because after the war and the victory of Azerbaijan, there are still tensions between Armenia and Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan is still threatening Armenia with yet another war. And also because there's still repression in Azerbaijan. What remains of civil society and independent media. People are being arrested and sent to prison. So the country is dismantling whatever is left of a civil society. And it's something that's directly related to the war. Absolutely, and it really echoes this idea of danger that you were bringing up, Selinj. So, Haga, do you want to add something before we give the floor to the public?
Yes, thank you. So I want to say that when I started filming, and it happened that I mostly filmed my father, later I suddenly understood that during the wartime, at least in our war, men need more help, and women are becoming more strong. And it happens, I guess, because traditionally men are who need to keep safe the territory. And when they're seeing that the children are dying, like young boys are dying, they are becoming more, how to say, they are kind of becoming more, sorry, I forgot the word, but the women are becoming more stronger, and they are taking and doing a lot of important work, even though they are not on the front line. But a lot of them also are on the front line, cooking and being doctors. And about I want also to say that we are really in a big danger now of a new war, as in the south part of Armenia there is passing the historical Silk Road, which is very important part, and now everybody wants that part, and Azerbaijan wants, and Russia wants, and Europe wants, because it's the shortcut for cheap gas, and US wants because they can put their army under Iran. So the only country who doesn't want it, it's we, because it will mean the end of Armenia. We will finish. We will capitulate. And even now, gossips are spreading in the countries that people are talking that they know the exact day when war will start. Sometimes it happens that these gossips became real, but of course it's a gossip. I can't be sure that nobody can be sure that it will happen, but we are in a really dangerous situation, and I hope that international institutions and people will keep an eye on us, because I can see that there is kind of fashion on the wars, and this fashion makes that some other wars or some other genocides stay out of the news and international journals, which is awful actually and scary.
Thank you very much, Shoragat.
Thank you so much, Shoragat. I think now we can turn to the audience. Feel free to ask questions or raise your hand if you want to intervene.
Je regarde. Personne.
I don't see any hands raised. Oh, a lady here. Yes, please, go ahead. You need a microphone for the question.
Bonjour et merci, pardon.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I was wondering if Shahagat and her family were safe, and if they were still in Armenia, if they left, what happened to them these past 4 years.
Shoragat, did you hear the question?
Yes, thank you. We are not from Artsakh. We never lived there. My mother has some roots from Artsakh, but we are living very near to Yerevan.
Donc, relativement à la question du danger qui
So,
par madame, dans le
the lady was asking about this idea of danger.
vous êtes en train de dire
What you're telling us is that you do not feel that danger so much. You're not personally in danger. Your family is not in danger.
Sorry. No, actually, Armenia is very small. And now, for example, if something starts in Syunik, which is the southeast part in Armenia, in 2 hours they can be near our home. So there is all the time feeling of danger. Since my childhood, I have this feeling of danger because all the time I hear that children are dying. Even there is no official war. There are shootings. So this war is going on for 30 a bit more years, and the feeling of danger is not passing. So there is all the time feeling of the danger and stress. And even now, when I'm going to the festivals and suddenly I'm appearing in another country, I have this very strange feelings that I'm looking to the people and I can't anymore understand how people can live in peace and happily, how they can just peacefully give themselves, like sit under the sun. I can't understand that anymore. Sometimes I think my brain changed and I will never anymore feel peace.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Est-ce qu'il y aurait une autre question ou intervention du public?
Is there another question in the room, maybe?
Monsieur.
Yes, the gentleman at the front.
Merci.
Thank you and congratulations, Shohagat. The film is wonderful and it's also very necessary. I had a question on the political context. Viken briefly touched upon the context, but we don't really see it in the film. We can hear it at some points, though, when the mother tells Pashinyan that Karabakh was sold, or you can hear the father criticizing the fact that the military is corrupt at the beginning of the film. So Pashinyan has brought about change in Armenia, change that was much awaited by society at large, and this war has very much damaged this hope and this wave of change, and we can really feel the fact that Armenian society is broken, and there are demonstrations of families of soldiers who died at the front or who came back mutilated, maimed. Shohagat, how do you see Armenian society now, and what hopes are there for Armenian society? Viken, Shohagat, Sevinch, do you want to react? Very briefly, there was a color revolution in 2018, a revolution that overthrew the former regime. And we still need to insist upon the fact that despite of this defeat, even last year, the Nagorno-Karabakh was attacked, and there was ethnic cleansing there. Pashinyan, who is the leader of the revolution, organized elections after the war, in 2021, and he won again those elections. So public opinion in Armenia supports the promises of this revolution, and Pashinyan is very much supported by the population because people do not want the former regime to come back. But it is true that the promises of the revolution and the energy that was behind it, they wanted to modernize Armenia, and all of that it faces a lot of obstacles. Thank you, Viken. Any other questions? Shoragat? I saw 2 hands raised, but please go ahead, Shoragat.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to react to this question. I don't remember that part where my father says that military was sold. But I remember that part when my mother says that. But I can tell that this area of the world, where is Armenia, it is a very difficult area. And even we have the most silent government that they are like doing everything for the country, like that they are giving as a present their lives to the country and for their nation. And anyway, everything going to be very hard for us, because the thing is that this everything what is happening, it is not such a small thing that we can control. It is something, some bigger game what is happening, and we want it or we don't want it, we are a part of that. So I think in this there is, for me, there is also the responsibility of international institutions and just people.
Shoragat, thank you. Sevinch wanted to react.
Yeah,
and
just
then
briefly.
we'll give you the floor. Oui.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Shoragat. I completely agree that this small region has big stakes and big geopolitical games. And when you think of the post-war situation, the uncertainty of Armenian population on the other side is combined with the new nationalism of Azerbaijanis who feel like the victory gives them even more right to ask for more. And with the Aliyev's authoritarian regime strengthening by the victory, I think we can expect how this whole dynamics can be developed for the future. But I also want to mention that this uncertainty is addressed by some of, for instance, my colleagues in Armenia. We, on the 8th of March, we shared a joint statement with my colleagues from Armenia, with feminists from Azerbaijan and Armenia, talking about these parallels, of course, not so parallel, not so equal in terms of power, but in terms of the challenge for the peaceful imagination of the region.
Thank you very much. We have 2 questions here. Il y a Madame et Monsieur, je crois. Monsieur? Qui était l'autre personne? C'était vous, Madame?
Ma question porte sur le petit résumé qu'il y a eu.
I have a question on the short summary at the end of the film. Summary on the peacekeeping forces sent by Russia. It doesn't seem that they were very efficient, because I think there's 100,000 people, Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, who had to leave the region and go to Armenia. So how come Armenia called upon Russia and not to the UN Security Council to protect their region? That's the first question. And secondly, this looks very much like ethnic cleansing. This is a human rights festival. Has there been any action in front of the International Criminal Court by Armenia?
Donc oui, évidemment, les militaires russes, ils ont
Well, yes. Apparently there were agreements between Moscow and Baku before the operation, so there were Russian troops that just didn't act. They were supposed to be there to guarantee the security of Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, and they just left their position on the 19th of September when the attack happened. But even before that, there were signs showing that the Russians were not able or didn't have the orders from Moscow to react. So when Azerbaijan attacked Armenia in September 2022, there was no reaction on Russia's side. So it was quite obvious what it was about. But also to answer your second question, yes. Cases have been filed in front of international criminal courts, filed by Armenia, and there's also the threats coming from Azerbaijan, threats of future war. So Armenia is in a very, very delicate position these days. And to bounce back on what you were saying, Viken, there's an ongoing procedure in front of the International Criminal Court on the Criminal Court, which is ruling on the responsibility of states, and Armenia wasn't party to the Rome Statute, which is the founding treaty to the International Criminal Court. So it's not the International Court of Justice. The International Criminal Court rules on the criminal responsibility of individuals and not states. So far, the proceedings couldn't go on because the concerned states were not signatory nor members, signatories to the Rome Statute, which is a treaty. So it cannot be imposed upon states. So now Armenia has just requested to ratify the Rome Statutes in order to become a member of the International Criminal Court. So from a legal point of view, it will be interesting to see what is going to happen. And yes, there could be a case for ethnic cleansing.
We have still a little bit of time. 2 questions. Thank you very much for this opportunity to ask some questions. I would like to address my question to Sevinch in English, if possible.
How can a feminist perspective contribute to the peaceful process and the reflection of Azerbaijanese women inside of our country? Because I'm Armenian ethnically, and we know our education, we know our values, and I would like to know about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. So does I understand it correctly how the Azerbaijani feminists can address the Armenian women? This is what, yeah, how we can link. Yeah, great question. So I think one of the elements of the feminist movement and feminist resistance is to find this link. And I think we as Azerbaijani and Armenian women, we have much more in common than anyone when it comes to experiencing decades of war and conflict. I think the connecting lines is also about the general patriarchy, how it functions in our region. For instance, we had one project where we were asking it's kind of like Me Too movement for the South Caucasus, asking for the stories related with sexual harassment. And we didn't even ask for the country, we just asked for the stories. And believe me, there was no distinction. We didn't even understand which story coming from where, which region, which town. So we can see that our problems related specifically with how the patriarchy functions in our region and in our countries is very similar. That's only one of the connecting points, but there are so many others. I think the problem through the communication is the lack of, as we can already mention, the civil society in Azerbaijan is pretty much cracked down, and it doesn't have that much power to address even inside the country, and thinking of outside of the country is even more harder. But we do it in a very, very seemingly not so massive way, but at least we are connecting through, let's say, 10, 12, 30 people. We have a network, and the moments we are also questioning ourselves, what we are doing and what kind of tactics we have to choose, but we are in process. And also a lot of things are unpredictable, as Shorakat already mentioned. We also hear that there is another war coming, but we don't know if it's coming or not. We follow their political agenda, but we also don't know what exactly is waiting for us. So what should be our tactic to prevent, for instance, another war is one of the big questions. Yeah, I think this is something that needs to be discussed more. Thank you.
The same. And je voudrais aussi adresser. Oops.
And I would like also to ask a question. I'm very sorry to, if it's not very polite, but I would like to say something in Armenian to Shoragat, in Armenian.
Ստեղծել եք itens լավ film. Ես itens իմ կյանքում մեջ չգիտեմ հայկական ընտանիք, ով դժվարություն չունեն այս կյանքում։ Սաղս ունենք դժվարությունը։ Ուզում եմ ասեմ, որ ես հասկանում եմ ձեր ցավը։ Ես չեմ սիրի ասեմ, որ ես ցավացում եմ։ Ես հասկանում եմ ամեն ընտանիքս բանում անցել ենք մեր կյանքում։ Ուզում եմ որ դուք ուժեղ լինեք, առողջություն եմ ձեզ ցանկանում, ուզում եմ որ դուք նայեք հայլի, էփոնայում եք հայլի, հիշում եք ձեր աղբորը, ինչեղ ես ամեն օր նայում եմ, հիշում եմ իմ հորը, ես շատ ձեզ հասկանում եմ, դուք միք մտածեք, ես ծնվել եմ մեծացել եմ Ռուսաստան,
Je traduis, je résumerai en...
There will be a short summary in English or in French.
Non, mais je le ferai si c'est d'accord.
I can do it if you want, so that we can go on with other questions, because I want to give the floor also to another person who wanted to ask a question. So go on.
Ծովից ծով Հայաստան չկա, բայց մենք իստեղ նայում ենք սարեր, Հայաստան էլ մեջ կա սար, մենք սարերի մեջ կարանք մեր հայությունը գտնել։ Կարևորը մենք մեր ընտանիքի մեջ տավաճանություն չունենանք, էփո գնում ենք դուս, խոսում ենք, օր չխորանք, հասկանում եք, ես ձեզ չեմ ասում, մեր հայկական կոմունիտեին ասում եմ, մեր Հայաստանում մեջ, Սփյուռքի մեջ, ցանկանում եմ մեզ, որ մենք սաղս փոխվենք, սկսվեց ամեն մարդկու, ընտանիքի մեջ, հետո մեր ընկերներու մեջ, merci.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que
Thank you very much. I think it was important. Shoragat, I just make a short summary in French, because not everybody speaks Armenian for the audience. Thank you. It was a very beautiful testimony of how the work and the images, the footage of Shoragat touch all the Armenian families, wherever they come from, because this lady is Armenian from Russia. So once again, those questions of borders and diaspora, they are part of this history of suffering and grief. And it was a testimony. Yes, absolutely. What can I say? You said a lot of things, but that are very understandable in the few words I said about this cross-border testimony. And that's it. She was speaking about the echo, the way it echoed to her for other families in the hearts of other people, not only in Armenia or Artsakh, that have this common history, it's true. Thank you very much. Shoragat, sorry, you wanted to react to this? what this lady said?
I just said that I hug her.
Voilà, le cœur qui parle. Je pense qu'il y avait une personne.
I think there was another person wanted to ask a question before you, Mr. No? So this Mr. We have a few minutes for another question. Yes, thank you very much. Good evening. We talk about different players, Russia, Azerbaijan, of course. There's another stakeholder, I think, who I would like to hear about, any of you. It's a neighbor with quite a rich historical history with Armenia. It's Turkey that had a very prominent role in these strikes of last year. And I think, as we said, Armenia, it's not only a local problem, it's also wider than that. Yes, thank you very much for this question, but because I was thinking that we had not spoken about Turkey, and I would like to hear something about it. Turkey has a very strong history, rich history linked with Armenia. It's a very nice euphemism. Who wants to answer to this question? Each of you, perhaps? Perhaps I begin with Vikan, that has worked a lot on that. But Sevinch and Shuragat, if you want to react, don't hesitate. Yes, I have not only worked on this subject, but we work together here. We were here in 2015, and it was another context. As if we were on another planet at this time, we thought that 100 years after the genocide, with this conscious, moral conscious and political conscious, international conscience, when the president of Germany finally said yes, it was a genocide, but also Germany has a direct responsibility in it. And a few years afterwards, the world changed completely. And we see now that Turkey in 2020 took part directly with its generals, its officials, with its army in a war against Armenia and the Armenians. And for me, it was the more important element in the international level, not only for this little place of mountain land that is Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, but imagine a country that made a genocide comes back and goes on 100 years afterwards, and there were references to the genocide. It was insupportable, unbearable for me to finish the work. We heard those words, to finish the work. The president of Turkey pronounced those words. So now we see that I have this feeling that the threats of a nuclear war coming from Mr. Putin and with Israel that is accused of a genocide, we are like falling back into a second cycle of genocides, and the humanity with this with our international institutes, we have learned nothing of the 20th century. We don't have the instruments to protect ourselves, to protect humanity of the dangers, the threats, like of genocide, and that's really scary. It's scary for all the little countries that are not protected. Perhaps the big country, the empires, they have the means to throw hundreds of thousands of their soldiers into the front line, but the existence of the small countries are threatened. And 2 years ago, we were here, we talked about the genocide of the Yazidis by ISIS. And no, it's not an extremist group, it's states committing genocides, and it's scary, of course. Turkey is really present in this story. Present, active, supporting politically, financially, in the military field and in the narrative, a very explicit narrative of the repetition of the wanted disappearance of the Armenians. You said an euphemism. There's no euphemism in the political rhetoric of Erdogan. It's very explicit. Perhaps we will have to go soon, so let's Sevinch and Shoragat react to that, to this question of the place and the role of Turkey in this geopolitical dynamic? Shoragat, do you want to say something?
Until Vigan was talking, I was thinking how they are managing to kind of stay in the shadow while they are part of this war. Even I'm forgetting to talk about them. Actually, I want to say something else. I want to say that I think 1 hour of talking with each other and all of you, dear audience, who are listening us. Unfortunately, I can't see you, but you see my face, and I think that hopefully 1 hour is enough that you remember my face and remember my family through the film. And I know that when far away war is happening, it seems like a cartoon, like it's just a news, and like 2 seconds after you read it, you will forget about it. It is not about real people who are dying there. But please, if something bad happened, but hopefully it will not happen, just remember my face and remember that maybe I'm going to die, and maybe it will push you to keep your attention on Armenia.
Je vous propose de, en fait, peut-être de nous arrêter là.
Perhaps we should stop at that.